Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. So today we're going to talk about racing sanctions and how they fit into the scene and really what their role is in the grand scheme of things. Dude, I don't mean to be alarmed, but did you hear the outlaws are coming? Oh, okay. Outlaws? That doesn't sound too good. Should be fine. Dude, and they're bringing war with them. They're meeting at the speedway. Let's go. War? Are you sure? Speedway. They're not really outlaws, and it's not really war. So as I said at the beginning of the video, we're going to talk about racing sanctions, kind of what they are and what they do, and why they're important to the teams, the drivers, the racetracks, and the sport as a whole. So obviously this is not going to be the end-all be-all, so we'll kind of break it down to where the average race fan can kind of get a grasp on it. The reason why I did this video is because the other day when I was at work, I was sitting there with a coworker talking motorsports like I like to do. And they asked, "Hey man, what does this mean? Is this what is a sanction? What's this? Is this a sanction or a series or whatnot?" And as I always tend to think, if one person has that question, so does another person. So that's why I created this video today. So maybe if there is another person out there that doesn't know what all these crazy letters, war, outlaws, IMCA, what all that means, well, we can take care of at least a little bit of it and get you pointed in the right direction. So let's dive into this. So you can think of a big sanction as an umbrella group. So I know you've probably heard the terms if you've been around the Midwest, or UMP, the United Midwest Promoters. That is a sanction. Another sanction you might have heard of, especially if you're big into modifieds and some stock cars, is IMCA, the International Motor Contest Association. So that is a national organization. I think they actually have one event in Canada as well. Here in the Midwest, you also might have heard of POWRi, which is Performance Open Wheel Racing Incorporated. Now, they do a lot of open wheel series, but here lately, they've actually pulled in some other racing series or racing groups in their, I should say, classes. So you'll have like Hornets, Pure Stocks, Super Stocks, and late models within the realm of POWRi. So that's pretty cool. In fact, UMP and IMCA, if you're a big modified fan, you will hear those terms a lot. And that's because they do sanction a lot of modified tracks and races here throughout the country. Now, their rule packages are very similar, but there's still two different sanctions. So obviously, the most well-known sanction in America is probably NASCAR, the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing. And they formed around 1948. Well, they didn't form around 1948. They formed in 1948. Now, obviously, there was other racing before that, but it was all hodgepodged. And, it's pretty much whatever the people that were promoting the race, they would allow whatever sometimes. And NASCAR came along in 1948 and set the foundation for what it is today. Now, the most popular one in Europe is probably the FIA. Now, they're the ones that govern the Formula Series. So you have Formula 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I think Formula E, I don't know if that's started yet or is getting started or they're trying it out or what. But, I don't know much about their electronic stuff. Now, the oldest one here in America is the IMCA. They've been running since 1915, and they still hold races today. And I believe one event in Canada. So what is all that stuff? with a bunch of acronyms. Yeah, they're cool, but they don't mean much if you don't know what they are. So, what a sanctioning body does is it will take in series, tracks, and classes, and it will promote all these things out to the public. Like NASCAR. They promote their series through different avenues, whether it be on the radio or TV or through posters or billboards or whatever. It's their job to promote their series that are underneath them. Here's the most important thing I think they do as far as how important they are to not just the teams, but to the sport, is they lay out a groundwork for all the rules. They lay out a standardized set of rules for teams and tracks that pretty much make it easy to follow. So back in the day, like I said, if your track, especially if your track wasn't a sanctioned track, they could have whatever rule packages that they wanted. They might have had an old IMCA driver that liked most of the rules in IMCA, but didn't really like this one. So they would tweak stuff here and there. And you had to check tracks, their individual rule books to kind of get your car legal for that track. Now, I talked to a couple of street stock drivers back in the day, and they used to get frustrated because their car would be legal at one track, and then a track just an hour away, it wasn't legal. They would have to change a few things, so it would kind of get frustrating where street stock, you could run it as a street stock down here, but you couldn't run as a street stock out there. So that's what a sanction does. It takes a series, and then let's just say with World of Outlaws, you have the sprint cars and the late models. So what's cool about these series like that is when they come under an umbrella like that, your car is going to be legal no matter where you travel, as long as it's a race sanctioned by this organization. So, the World of Outlaws, they go to tracks all over the country. Well, each track might be different on a weekly basis, but whenever the World of Outlaws come in town, it doesn't matter if it's Lakeside Speedway just outside of Kansas City. It doesn't matter if it's I-55, Federated Auto Parts outside of St. Louis, or down in Texas, or the dirt track at Charlotte, or up at Williams Grove Speedway in Pennsylvania, or Silver Dollar Raceway out in California. It doesn't matter. As long as it's a World of Outlaw event, that the setup is going to be legal no matter where you're at. So the World of Outlaws, NASCAR, all those big sanctions like that travel around, they have their own technicians that inspect everything. They have their own flagmen, their own officials. So everything's the same all the way across the book. But even on the local level, it's still important. So let's just take POWRi, since I'm here in the Midwest. If you are racing in one of their series, let's say the Outlaw 410 series or the War series, the Wingless Auto Racing series, which is Wingless Sprints, or their Super Stocks or their late models, in any of their series. If you go to a track that is a POWRi sanctioned track, that your rules, as long as you have your car set up to their specific rules, you're good to go. It doesn't matter if you're racing at, Callaway Raceway or Central Missouri Speedway. They all run by POWRi rules. So that is one thing that's good for the drivers and teams is, like I said, sanction just kind of lays out a ground format for the rule packages, for the cars, for the restarts, for all this stuff that goes into a nightly race. It's going to be exactly the same as long as that track is under that umbrella. Because I mentioned in one of my videos about starts and restarts that sometimes they can be different. Even that little aspect of racing can be different. So that's what a sanction does, and that's why it's important. So I hope I kind of didn't go off on too many tangents or ramble on about, something to the point where it was boring. But that is what a sanction does and why it's important to the sport. Um, so I hope you got something out of that video. And now you're better equipped to know a little bit more about sanctions. And hey, that knowledge is what counts because that knowledge builds the experience. And you know what I always say? Be courteous, be safe. It's the experience that matters. So go make it a good one.